We're 2 games into the NBA Finals, and it might be over. It might be over. It really might be over, man. Last night's game has so much to talk about, from Wemby's performance, late game execution, and of course, Karl-Anthony Towns. All of that and more on today's All-NBA show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, the hardest working man in sports. It's Jason Timpf, host of Hoops Tonight over at The Volume. JT, how you doing today?
It's good to see you, Adam. I haven't seen you in a couple of weeks, which has probably been for the best because I literally almost died from some sort of viral illness. Like I had the worst illness of my life. I was legitimately having crazy fevers every single night. I was going from the bed to the studio to bed to the studio, like just for the jobs that I absolutely had to do. So honestly, Legs going 3 times last week did me a solid. So shout out to Legs. It filled in.
It's awesome that you're crushing it because you know why you're sick. You're pushing your body to the limit. Your body's defenses are completely gone. You know, you're doing a great job with your breakdowns over at Hoops Tonight. I've been checking them out. Always a good watch after these games. And yeah, man, this time of year, it's like we're not pro athletes, but we're pushing our bodies nonetheless. Minimal sleep, tons of research. It's pretty good, man. Today's show is going to be good because last night's game was huge. And maybe it's the last great breakdown of the entire finals because I don't know. I set the table with this, and we'll get into it later, but just my sense is that you can't go down 0-2 and now go on the road and expect to win this. To me, we'll see the Kalshi odds later. I think they're wrong. This feels overwhelming. Like if the Spurs come back from this point on, it would be one of the greatest comebacks in finals history. That's how dire I feel like it is right now for them.
Yeah, you know, I'm hesitant to go. To be clear, you drop your first 2 at home. It's not over, but it's pretty much over because, frankly, now you've got to win 4 out of 5 with 3 of those games in Madison Square Garden. Like that's just a brutal challenge waiting in front of you. That said, the one reason why I'm hesitant to go too far that direction just yet is what happened in the last round, which is we saw a kind of a similar dynamic where in the first 3 games of the Thunder series, the Spurs kind of over-indexed towards double-teaming Shea. And the stat of the series to me was that in the first 3 games, they allowed 26 unguarded catch-and-shoot threes per game. But then in the final 4 games, they allowed just 11 per game because they stopped double-teaming so much. They trusted their guards in individual defense. Some late help, some dig downs, but they didn't overdo it. Yep. And it kept them out of rotation more than they did in the first 3 games, and it kind of like swung the entire series. They even with Shea on the floor, they had like a 101 offensive rating over the course of the final 4 games with Shea on the floor. So like, even though I think this Knicks team is different, I think this Knicks team is a much tougher matchup, as we'll dig into, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I do think that the game plan change at least leaves the door cracked in the sense that you go into game 3, you don't give up as many open threes. You get a response from young players. You bring it back to 2-1. Now it's a game 4 that could end up swinging the series either way. So I do think that the Knicks have a massive advantage, but I'm hesitant to go all the way to like this thing's over.
Well, let's get into what I think is the most. We're going to go to our FanDuel game breakdown. We always do this. If you're new to the show, guys, make sure you're subscribed. Me and Tim Legler are doing this twice a week. Mark Stein once a week. Me and Jason Timpf once a week. And we're always just talking about the games, breaking down the games. So our FanDuel game breakdown today, of course, it's game 2. So to me, the big storyline here is that the Knicks present Victor Wembanyama. I mean, there's a lot of storylines, so we're going to get into all of them. But if I had to distill it down to the biggest one, it's that the Knicks present Victor Wembanyama with a unique challenge that we have not seen him face yet. And we'll talk in a second here about how unique that challenge is. Are there other teams that even have this pitch to throw? But it's Karl-Anthony Towns' size defensively, an ability to get physical with Wemby when he's matched up on him. It's his three-point shooting, which drags him out of the paint. And there's nobody else really for Wemby to go out and guard. It's his ability to blow by him. And I saw a stat today that said he's getting blown by, I think 61% or something, 61% of his like closeouts he's getting blown by on, which is an insane number. it really is the weakness in Wemby's defense, I think. And we talked about this coming into the series. It was one of my big, key X factors. It's become the main factor. And then the last part is if you try to switch off, if you try to cover it in other ways, Cat and the rest of the Knicks players are so good at getting offensive rebounds. If you're able to switch off, drag Wemby outside, the Knicks are going to grab the rebounds at an incredible rate. So right now it's Wemby's defensive deficiencies. It's crazy to say because it might literally be his only one, but his ability to have to run out and guard the perimeter and then keep his his person in front of him, that has always been a weakness, but Cat is exploiting it so perfectly.
Yeah, I have so many things after what you just said that I want to hit on. Because, first of all, I saw the blow-by percentage thing, and I saw some Luka fans coming up, and they're like, hey, his blow-by percentage in the finals was only 59%.
Yeah.
And I want to be like,
I love that.
like what happened in the last round, and even Wemby struggling in this round, to me, the best player in the world conversation is wide open. I think you could make a case for any of the guys, including Luka. And I am seriously considering Luka for that. So, I don't mean this as a slight towards Luka, but I'm sorry, what happened to Luka in the 2024 finals is not the same as what we're seeing here in this series. Frankly, he did give up a couple of straight up ISO blow-bys to Cat in game one that were really sloppy. And I do think there's a big picture conversation to have about Wemby kind of struggling with that balance between playing the shot versus playing the drive all over the floor. It's been one of his biggest weaknesses on defense. But most of the blow-bys he's given up in this series have been in rotation, which are a little bit different than a standard hey, Tatum and Brown are just picking on him and switches over and over again and blowing by him. That said, the fundamentally what Cat brings to the table is, like you said, that combination of size and strength, shooting and skill and passing ability, but also straight line speed. Cat's just fast dude, and when he gets going, he's a load to handle in terms of his freight train momentum. I had a mailbag question on my show last night where someone was like, do the Spurs need to get some sort of big forward to help Wemby with these kinds of matchups? I'm like, these kinds of matchups, give me one other guy in the league.
I know.
Yeah, Cat is very much in and of himself a unicorn. He's not a top tier superstar unicorn, or maybe even not even a top 10 player in the world unicorn, but he is a unicorn. He's a very unique combination of traits that is very specifically targeted towards Victor Wembanyama's weaknesses. And
100%.
That's honestly, I don't mean this to undercut the Knicks' success at all, because they've really caught lightning in a bottle. They're playing special basketball, and so many of these guys deserve so much credit. But this is kind of a matchup that I think we've talked about it on this show. We've talked about it on my show.
We saw it coming. I mean, we saw that this would be a challenge. We didn't know exactly how, to the degree to which it would be, but we knew this would be something that was going to test him.
Yeah, the Knicks have given the Spurs issues all year long. They had a game in March where the Spurs came in on an 11-game winning streak. And after the game, they won 5. So it was a 17-game stretch where the Spurs won 16 games, and they got their butt kicked in Madison Square Garden in the middle of it all. This has clearly been a matchup issue this entire season. It's that unique combination of their perimeter defenders are kind of big, which makes it so that the Spurs bully ball guards can't really just easily get 2 feet in the paint. And then Victor Wembanyama, you could argue the one guy in the league who's built to give him the most trouble on both ends of the floor is Karl-Anthony Towns. And every guy deserves a bunch of credit. Mikal Bridges was incredible last night. Look at Deuce McBride in some of the big shots he hit in the late third, early fourth. Look at OG Anunoby in the runs he's had. Jalen Brunson's hit clutch shots. But to me, Karl-Anthony Towns is the foundational thing that's breaking this matchup on both ends of the floor.
Well, to your point, it's that is one way to beat him, is with these straight line drives and these threes. And we talked about Cat has a quick release because it's not like he jumps very high. He almost just kind of goes on his tippy toes and releases it. So he can get it out of his hands quick, which means you have to bite on the closeout. You have to close out hard. And then it is funny because I still can't tell if he's fast. His moves, what I mean by this is he is getting, it's effective. So I'm not trying to take anything away from him, and it's a quick first step with a really long stride is what I think it is. And then he has the strength to kind of hold you off, but it's not like he's exploding to the basket, one leg, cocking it back. It's just, he gets around and then he plods his way there. But so that's part of it, and that's a big part. It is the most foundational part. But the other part is how well the Knicks move the ball, because they've had multiple possessions where, okay, if Wemby's going to do that, he's going to be able to close out and contain some of the times, or get blown by, but just a little bit to where he could probably recover enough. But if you can make it a pass, another drive, swing the ball to the other side, another drive, all of a sudden Wemby, it's a lot of energy to close out and recover, and then maybe he has to make a rotation to the corner. You're just making Wemby move forward, backwards, left, right, up, down. He has to do it over and over again, and the Knicks are near perfect at accentuating those advantages and just working them 3, 4, 5 rotations until they find an open guy, and then they're getting to the paint with Wemby nowhere in sight. And that's what's impressive. They can beat him immediately, and they can beat him slowly in that exact same way. And the discipline it takes to be able to do that consistently is unbelievable.
You know, I love the bit you were talking about with Cat, because like the other weird thing with him is like he's always playing off of 1 foot instead of off of 2 feet, which is kind of a bizarre thing considering like we've talked about this a lot. That's such a foundational, important trait for any basketball players. You want to have a strong base. You want to play off of 2 feet so that you can't get knocked off balance. And Cat is very much a straight line, single leg player. It's the catch and shoot mixed with the rip through to the right. And when he rips through to the right, as soon as he gets the slightest bit of leverage on his primary defender, it's this rumbling, stumbling, just 1 foot in front of the other, like just eating up contact. And guys really do have a hard time knocking him off of his base in those situations. And it's kind of just like, again, like I said, a unicorn. It's a very unique kind of trait. But the driving kick sequences that you're referencing from last night, the stacking of drives where you have these Knicks possessions where there's multiple on the same possession, where you have 3, 4 attacks to get just a great look at the end for a guy who can really hit a shot. Where it really starts is just the jump shooting piece. So like the Knicks just flat out are the best jump shooting team in the playoff field by far. They're getting 1.08 points per jump shot. The Lakers are in second place. They're about 15 points worse per 100 shot attempts. So like they're not 15, 1.5 per 100 shot attempts. So they have the best jump shooting team in the league, juxtaposed with the Spurs, who are very much a middling kind of, they're 1 point per attempt. So they're a much more like shaky jump shooting team. And so what you're seeing is like on the Knicks driving kick sequences, you have panic closeouts where dudes are like Wemby included. These are where these blow-bys are coming from. Dudes are flying out to the perimeter, chase a guy off the line, and it's leading to these like easy rip through closeouts where the next guy is like straight line drive towards the rim and another helper has to come over. Even on some of the contests, like look at the Julian Champagny foul on OG Anunoby late in the game. Like that's a panic play. Yeah. That's oh crap, he's going to make it. I have to do something. And so I'm swiping at the basketball. Like you're not going to see a Knick player do that to a Dylan Harper jump shot. They'll be like, oh, I blew by. Go ahead, take it. We'll see if you make it. You know what I mean? And you see a lot of these like shorter closeouts from the Knicks in their driving kick sequences defensively against the Spurs, where the Spurs are struggling to really get those straight line drives because like there's a little bit more contained on the ball. And then on that first closeout, it's like just close out short. And now like Dylan Harper's driving a closeout when a guy didn't even get within 5 feet of the 3-point line. And it just kind of causes this dynamic where the Knicks can regain control in those driving kick sequences, where it feels like the Spurs lose control in those driving kick sequences. And I just thought the Knicks got better shots last night. I thought a lot of the Spurs turnovers were on those kinds of sequences where a guy kind of drives into the lane, but he didn't really beat his man. So now he's looking for an outlet, but no one really helped. So now he's throwing a kick out pass, but OG Anunoby just has his arm up in the passing lane and now it's tipped away and it's a turnover going the other way. So I think flat out the gap in jump shooting talent is on display. And it goes even a step further to the shot making, like beyond like catch and shoots, but like driving closeouts, where it's like one of the pivotal sequences of this game is just you have a Brunson Cat off the floor lineup in the late third quarter where like Mikal Bridges hits a couple of tough mid-range pull-ups. Deuce McBride hits a tough mid-range pull-up and they grow the lead. But they're like a better shot making team. They're just better at that than the Spurs are. And it's part of why this matchup is so tough for them.
Well, I think the shots are also a consistent rhythm through the whole playoffs. And maybe this is solely a credit to the Knicks. I do think it is enormously a credit to the Knicks, but I do feel like they are playing a similar style. Like they're in a groove that they've been in. And the thing you're talking about is the driving kicks, the discipline it takes. This is the thing about the Knicks. Discipline has been so impressive, connection and discipline, because a lot of teams will take the shots that you're talking about where guys running them out, but they are open. What they are almost perfectly calculating is when to take the shot because it's open enough to get it up versus when can I turn this into an even better shot with a pump fake and drive. And they're striking that balance perfectly. And it just feels like they're passing up good ones to get great ones, and they know how to do it. But on the Spurs side, you brought up what I think is the second biggest storyline here. So the Cat Wemby, the way they're mitigating Wemby's defensive impact by these rotations and through Cat. The second part of it is the Knicks really are treating the Spurs like they're not great shooters. And it's weird because I think the Spurs are better than what they are shooting. But these shallow closeouts are really tempting them and just saying, we're not letting you into the paint. There are a lot of possessions where there's 5 bodies in the paint, 4 bodies in the paint, and they're just closing out shallow enough for it not to feel wide open, but far enough away that you're not going to blow by him. And even Brunson doing a great job of this. Like a lot of these closeouts, he's just not going to let you around him to where the team gets in rotation. And the Spurs are thrown off by it. And I think the solution here is largely to have to take these shots a little bit earlier. We're talking about the Knicks have great patience. The Spurs might need to lose some of the patience and take the shot because they have them. But the problem is you just lost 2 at home without doing that. Now you're going to go into maybe the craziest finals environment of the last 25 years. And now you're going to expect those guys to make the shots, take those shots and make them. But I do think that's a big part of it is the Knicks are closing out shallow and the Spurs are trying to get great shots when what they're being given is good shots.
Yeah, I think honestly a big part of the late game run too was the Spurs kind of throwing caution to the wind and playing in the open floor. I think it's one of the most underrated things about the turnover is the turnover kind of mimicked the chaos of the final 5 minutes. Like that was not the first Spurs transition like open floor passing turnover of the final 5 minutes. Steph Castle had a bad one where he threw a cross court pass. De'Aaron Fox had a bad one where he threw a cross court pass that got stolen. Like the Spurs were throwing caution to the wind and just flying up and down the floor and shooting in the first few seconds of the shot clock. And then the handful of times they did get stuck in the half court, they were really going after Jalen Brunson in one-on-ones. And that I would set aside because I think I think there's
talk about some more
stuff to take away there, especially involving lineups, which we can get into in a little bit. But like I thought the story of the late game was like, yes, they stopped double teaming Brunson and they played him into some tougher shots and that helped them get stops, which certainly is key. Like you got to get stops to run. But I just thought the Spurs really emphasized high variance, high chaos, open floor basketball. And it kind of like removed some of the nerves that can come with those, like you said, those dare you types of shots. And I thought it definitely served them best. I think like in a weird way, the Knicks can win the series and are winning the series by being grown-ups. But in a weird way, like the Spurs have to win the series by playing kind of like a helter-skelter chaos brand of basketball, because I think they are kind of drawing dead in the half court for all of the reasons that we've discussed. But I agree with you. Like, I think leaning more into aggression, early clock shot attempts, getting up the floor quickly is a way to kind of remove some of the nerve-wracking dare you to shoot, catch and shoot situations.
But even when you get into those moments, they just have to shoot them, because I think they're getting into trouble sometimes by passing up. Like, you shallow close out and you don't take the shot, the defense automatically feels like we won, because now you pump faked and you didn't do anything, and now I'm just sitting ready to guard. And then if you pump fake and try to go and you don't get an advantage, you're running into not only the defender, but a help side defender, and the paint's crowded. There's no kick out to be had. You've wasted seconds. And that's what I think the Knicks have successfully done. They've identified this in the Spurs, and they've successfully executed it. So I do think there's something to it. Let's go to the end of game, though. I saw your show last night. I do think this is one where the narrative flipped largely because of a singular mistake. Because the Spurs could have survived this one in an ugly way, and you'd say there's some real concerns, but it's 1-1, and now the series feels more or less like a coin flip. Wemby gets the ball, and I don't even blame Wemby. I mean, this is a growing moment. You get the ball with 9 seconds left, and there's no timeout. I feel like you have to know if you're a timeout team or not a timeout team. But the one thing I would say for certain is I would not let Wemby dribble the ball up the court with 9 seconds on the clock. It's not that he can't do this throughout the game. He can. He does it a lot. But with 9 seconds, the odds of you turning it over as a 7'5" guy dribbling it up against that Knicks defense are just so high. And you could see he got into a moment where he was like, oh, I dribble it up. Well, maybe I shouldn't this time, at the exact wrong moment. And there was a great angle. Did you see the angle this morning? It's like from behind. It's basically from the baseline.
Steph Castle looking back.
It's just so perfect, man. Honestly, it's one of those things where you're like, split second in any other direction, this is probably not a turnover. But right as he turns his head is right when Wemby gathers. It's like perfect, a perfect disaster where he throws it ahead. But for all of that, bad play by Wemby, he'll have to learn from it. To me, I just look at it and say, that was such a predictable thing to happen in that moment. If you're not calling a timeout for a young team, you get the last shot, you go to overtime at worst, good chance you win it. And it's crazy that that's how the Spurs are going to lose this game and maybe even the series.
I don't think the Spurs have a rock-solid ball handler. And if I don't have a rock-solid ball handler, I'm calling a timeout. If it's Jokic, sure. If it's Steph, Luka, Shea, LeBron, there's a half dozen guys in the league where I'm like, okay, just dribble it up, go make a play. They don't have a rock-solid ball handler. The Spurs are a talent collective. Even Wemby in and of himself is a talent collective. He is a collection of absurd traits, but what he is not is a rock solid ball handler. And so there's a certain thing with Wemby where it's like very clearly, yo, dude, you don't throw a pass unless you're 100% sure the dude's open and has his eyes on you and is ready for the pass. Like even above and beyond the Steph Castle looking back piece of it, which he certainly was, Jalen Brunson was in front of him. So like right. It's not
if he caught it would have been tough. Like if he might have caught it, if he would have caught it,
he would have had to immediately navigate some sort of dig or charge attempt from Brunson. So like he wasn't in an advantageous position. So like I want to be clear, I'm not trying to alleviate Wemby from blame here because as soon as Wemby had the ball, he made a big mistake, and frankly, like he will learn from it. And as long as we're talking about mistakes really quickly, not to take a detour here, but they made mistakes in game 1 too. De'Aaron Fox randomly fouls Mikal Bridges on that flash to the high post for no damn reason. Wemby dribbles it off of his foot he dribbled it off of Cat's foot on that play, but he kind of gets a little cute with the dribble move on a key possession late. Like there's a certain amount of lean into chaos in the large sample because you're an open floor team. But once you get in the small sample, you have to refine your decision-making a little bit. So that goes without saying. But last night, what I kept thinking was, you said it perfectly. You have to know if you're a timeout team or not a timeout team. This is a timeout team.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can even have situational, like who gets the ball. Like if Wemby gets the ball, we're calling a timeout. And that's the thing a coach could know. Like a coach should be thinking about that beforehand. If Harper or Castle gets it, I could see a world where you're just saying, get the scramble defense, go up and whatever. But the moment Wemby catches that ball, you're like, that guy is going to have to now dribble it up against pressure. It's a disaster. At that moment, you have to be an immediate timeout.
Yeah, and frankly, personally, I don't think Steph Castle or De'Aaron Fox are like rock solid enough ball handlers for me to trust them. It'd be one thing if Fox had like 32 and was just in a great groove.
If he wasn't having a horrible stretch.
If he wasn't, yeah, exactly. So like, I think asking a 22-year-old to play perfect basketball in the NBA Finals is a little much to ask.
Yeah.
I think the head coach, who's the adult in the room, has to be the guy who prevents that mistake from happening. So, my first blame is Mitch. My second blame there is Wemby. Third blame, I guess, Steph Castle, because he's got to keep his head turned around. But, it's a distant third. I left that thinking, this whole thing never should have happened because Mitch should have called the timeout. I also didn't quite think there was enough time. There was 12 seconds, but it wasn't like there was... It was 12 seconds, but Wemby got the rebound at the baseline, and he had Karl-Anthony Towns kind of behind him where, it wasn't like it was a clean defensive rebound with tons of space around him for him to casually bring the ball up the floor. It very much was kind of an open floor transition sequence. And again, like we just talked about, they already had 2 big transition turnovers in that sequence in the previous few minutes. So they had already demonstrated that they were a little unstable in those open floor sequences. I just thought it was an example of mismanagement from Mitch. And frankly, like you said, they very well could have won that game. Like it could be a series altering type of mistake.
The last thing before we take our first break of the show is the late game offense for the Spurs to me is still predictably chaotic because it's the part of their identity that I think is not formed yet. They have a lot of their identity formed. There are some big questions, but I've always thought if you get late in games against them, they go to things that they feel almost like they ought to do and not necessarily what is going to be their best option, namely trying to like isolate a little bit, too much and trying to throw the ball and say, hey, Wemby, let's see what you can create here. Their offense is not give the ball to Wemby and everybody flatten out. That's not their offense, but late in games it can be. And I think that, Wemby has had a phenomenal run and it's still going. This is not taking anything away from him, but he's not perfect. And so we're seeing the straight line drives give him a challenge. The other thing that gives him a challenge is his footwork is incredibly robust, given his skill set and impact. When you give him the ball, he takes negative dribbles a lot. In fact, he had one late in this game where he scored off of it anyway. If you remember the play, he catches at the foul line, and he kind of just dribbles the ball through his legs before doing anything and then turns over his right shoulder and drives, picks up the dribble because he didn't beat anyone, and looks to pass. And then just by the grace of God, somebody jumps out of position and his long arms stretch and he gets a shot off the backboard. It shows you that the margin of error for him is huge because he's so long. But you still watch that play and go, nothing he did on that was correct from a fundamental standpoint. The dribble, the steps, everything just like took away his ability to create an advantage. And that's how he is. And yet late in games, they feel this need, I think, because it's like he's our best player, he's our leader, he's all these things. We just have to let him win it for us. And I wonder, like, he has a long way to go to develop. He has a lot of steps to take to perfect his fundamentals in that regard. And part of me wonders if he's your best player, but he might not be the guy. You might not just be an ISO team. You have other good guys, and maybe you have to identify a two-man game or something. But late in the game, even the last shot, I just think you're going to Wemby here for him to do like a hezzy pull-up. If that's your goal long-term, the Spurs are going to have, in my opinion, a bit of a clutch ceiling to them.
This is interesting because, like, I agree on some of the things you said and disagree on others. So, like, I actually really liked the shot they got in the last possession.
I mean, for what it is, it's an open shot.
Yeah, you're in the NBA Finals against a very good defense, maybe even a great defense, and you got Mitchell Robinson defends Wemby on two plays down the stretch, that one and then the one before the 2-for-1, and on the 2-for-1 it was an ISO, and on the ISO he kind of went with that jab step dribble to the left. And he doesn't get much separation. Mitch gets a great contest, and Victor has to kind of shoot it high, and he barely gets it to kind of graze off the side of the rim. On the second one, they run a ball screen, and on the pitch back to Wemby, he kind of like on the catch goes down like he's going to jab and then elevates, and it freezes Mitchell Robinson. And he actually gets great. I thought he got great separation. If you look at the difference between where Wemby's release point was and where Mitchell Robinson's contest was, I thought that the second shot was just fine. But it also kind of like drives your point home, which is something I agree with, which is I hate these perimeter ISOs for Wemby right now. Will they get better when he adds a really reliable mid-range game in particular? Yes. And I do think that part of Wemby's kind of like long-term development involves that, like that face up kind of like I can hit a little 17, 18 foot jump shot off a variety of different little bits of footwork, but that's a long-term thing. That's not a short-term solution. I actually agree with you in the sense that especially within this series, if I'm running anything late game for Wemby on the ball, I want it to be out of an action that gets him deeper post position. So one of the things he had an example against Mikal Bridges last night, and then he had another one in game one. It's in my social media feed. We did a clip on it in our film session after game one. But when they run a pick and roll and Wemby rolls, usually they jack a shot up in the first 2-3 seconds of that sequence. If they don't jack it up on the ball, they skip it to the corner and that dude jacks a shot up. And when Wemby rolls, he gets deep post position. that's when he gets the catches around the basket. And in those spots, even the big, strong, physical dudes who can push him around struggle with him because he's just so close to the basket. So, like, if you're going to run one-on-ones for Wemby, run it out of a pick and roll. Run the pick and roll. Just have the guard, reverse pivot, swing it out, swing, post entry, as Wemby now has deep post position there on the left block. Then he can go quickly to work there in that spot. If it's not that, I actually agree that they should be playing through their guards more at the end of the games. And for the record, like they did a little bit last night where Fox and Harper in particular were really hunting Jalen Brunson. I think the big adjustment for the Spurs in terms of their lineups is I really, really want to see them start to lean on all of their ball handlers on the floor at the same time. Listen, Champagnie brings spot-up shooting. I get it. But it's not like he can guard Cat either. So, like, they're undersized off of Wemby no matter what. But I like the idea of being like, hey, Jalen Brunson, you have to guard somebody that can score. And so if you go with Fox, Harper, Castle, and Vassell all at the same time, then you force Brunson to guard. Now you can get into your offense without necessarily having to start with Wemby on ball. He can function more as a play finisher where he can be very impactful. But I do agree with you. Like I do feel like the ISOs for Wemby from like 18 to 25 feet are very forced right now, and they're just not a good matchup for him with how strong these Knicks front court players are. If you're going to go to Wemby one-on-one, you got to find a way to get him deep post position first, whether it's a cross screen or running it out of a pick and roll. I do 100% agree with you there.
Well, even the last play, the one you're talking about, was an action, and that's why it is different from the other ones in the last 5 minutes. Is it's at least a pick, pop out, the defense has to scramble, and Wemby is starting from a position of having a little bit of space, and that's why you say he kind of went to a jab and then just elevates. He didn't need. I think he almost was going to do a move and realized I don't need it. I'm open enough. Just take the shot now. And those to me work because it's an action. What I don't like is over the last 5 minutes, there's just a lot of give it to him and maybe something happens here. And I just don't think his footwork is anywhere near the ability to create advantages from that other than just being really tall. But again, if you're counting on that over and over again, it's not going to win in the clutch, at least at this moment. Maybe he develops into it. I'd still be skeptical. If I'm building the Spurs long-term clutch game plan, I would be looking at 2- and 3-man actions to become our bread and butter, not give the ball to Wemby and let's play off of him with cuts and spacing. I just don't think that is going to optimize his skill set. As great as he is, he still has a long way to go to being an effective late game, can create offense with like great moves. We got to take a break though. We're going a little long in segment 1. More on this, including I'm going to ask in segment 2. You said there's nobody else like Cat. I do think there's maybe one, but maybe not more than one other player that can give Wemby this problem. So what does that mean? And then do we recontextualize any other teams that lost in the playoffs because we're seeing how the Spurs looked incredible and now look really rough? We're going to talk about that in segment 2. Customers can bet $5. You get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. And when every possession matters in the playoffs, FanDuel makes it easy to get closer to the action. From player props on your favorite stars to all the tools you need to back them up, FanDuel puts player research right at your fingertips so you can check stats, trends, and matchups all in one place and make your picks with confidence. It's everything you need all in one app, so don't miss your shot. Head to FanDuel.com/AllCity to get started. FanDuel, play your game.
Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. Or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.
You know that moment, the one where you realize you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach, on the roof of your car, or at a gas station 3 states away? Well, I've been there too, but I've got Shady Rays, and they've changed the game. They've got sunglasses that are made for real life, seriously good-looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. And the wild part is, if you lose or break them even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No questions, no guilt trips, just replacements. So now you can actually wear your sunglasses without fear on hikes, at concerts, on a boat, wherever. Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. Go to shadyrays.com and use the code ALLCITY for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Back here, segment 2, I'm with Jason Timpf. We're doing a weekend show for you because the game was so good and we didn't want to let a couple days go in between. So, JT, we talked earlier about how Cat is this sort of singular force to put pressure on Wemby. And Wemby, to be clear, absolutely dominant in this playoffs. For 3 rounds, defensively, you watch it and you go, he just controls every possession, whether he's doing something or not. Dominant. Cat does provide something unique. This is my Jokic coming out. But I think Jokic also provides something similar. The difference is the three-point shooting has not been consistent for Jokic. And we saw, I think, you go back and think about that first round, Jokic not being able to hit a 3 really cost them in that series because it allowed Gobert to just kind of pack the paint and stay off of him. But I do think that Jokic provides him a physical mismatch that you're seeing. And I think that he does draw Jokic out of the paint. Then you combine that with OG Anunoby. You see that dunk he had on Wemby where he just wasn't scared, wasn't going fast. He was just going slow and then powered up saying, "You're not, even if you block this, I'm still going to dunk it." It's reminiscent a little bit of like what AG looks like. So I think Jokic is one other player that I think presents similar and probably similarly effective challenges as Karl-Anthony Towns does. Cat just obviously the better shooter and probably the quicker driver.
Yeah, Jokic to me, when I'm talking about like Cat is kind of a unicorn among like weird kind of matchup quirks. To me, what
different
like Jokic is like a completely different ball game because we're talking about one of his peers at the top of the league. I think the 3-point shot is an important piece there because it's funny. I after the first half when Wemby was really really struggling, I was thinking a lot about who's the best player in the world, and I was kind of in my head. I'm like, man, none of these guys really have a good case. Like Luka has this incredible list of playoff moments, and certainly has had dominant playoff runs, but he's also coming off of 2 bad years. And then Shea has been one of the most substantial playoff droppers of this group, and is as substantially lesser playoff performances on his resume than any of the other top guys. Giannis has been hurt multiple years in a row. Jokic went out in an inexcusable way in the first round against an injured Minnesota team. And Wemby's getting annihilated by Karl-Anthony Towns in the finals. So none of these guys really have a great case. But as I was kind of digging into it, my initial gut feeling was I still think it might be Jokic. But it comes down to that 3-point shot ultimately.
Yep.
When Jokic has that 3-point shot, he's the best player in the world still. It's just that for 2 of the last 3 years, that shot has left him and it's cost his team a playoff series. And so it just is so complicated. And honestly, I think with all of these guys, there's a certain amount of, if this happens, then they are great. And it's Wemby with his jump shot. When Wemby's jump shot's going, he's just the best player in the world. Luka's step back 3. I'd argue when Luka has his step back 3 really going, that he's the best player in the world. Because
he just
goes for 46, 47 points because he suddenly becomes this dude that is just completely unguardable because if you play up on the step back 3, he just goes right around you every time and he's got the play finishing or the playmaking and the finishing. And then, obviously Shea's probably by far the lowest ceiling, but by far the highest floor of all of those guys. But then again, he was shooting tour dates there in the last round for the most part. So it's really difficult to get into, but I do think the matchup is super unique. And I know you wanted to dig into this idea of some of the other playoff teams.
Well, real quick, before we get that to that part, because I do want to move to that here really quickly, but are there any other bigs? Because I was trying to go through and think, star players and just role players where you say, okay, he'd have to guard this guy and that guy can at least do these things. That might be a star, but he can shoot and he can drive. Is there anyone else?
So I thought about this actually on my show last night. I don't think there's anybody else at the center position because the centers either all can't shoot well enough, like they can shoot, but they can't really shoot.
Like Miles Turner, maybe? Is Miles Turner an example of this? Because he can shoot, but he's not like Cat. He can go cold, and Wemby still closes out. It's not like he's giving him wide open shots.
Yeah, Miles is a lesser shooter and a lesser athlete, which makes it tougher. And Cat's a way better passer than Miles Turner because Cat has this very unique combination of the physical size, strength, and speed, but also the shooting, passing, and ball handling. It's all of those things kind of mixed together that are unique. What I actually ended up going towards was more of the oversized power forward archetype. But the problem is most of those guys have problems too. I think LeBron would be an awesome option to give Wemby a bunch of problems. He's 42 next year. Okay. Sorry, but Aaron Gordon, awesome option. The dude's hamstring can't stay on the bone. Julius Randle has some of those traits. He's just nowhere near as good. He can't really shoot. No. And Paolo Banchero, same sort of thing. Some of those traits are just not as good. So I had a Spurs fan say in our question, mailbag, hey, what do the Spurs need to get a forward? And it's do I think the Spurs could use a Yaxel Landenberg, or do I think they could use he could use a big physical forward next to him? Yeah, I think he certainly could, but I just think Cat is also just a very, very unique matchup. And unless he just keeps running into Cat in the finals, there's a version of this where he never sees Cat in a playoff series again.
Well, I just think that teams are going to start building for the Spurs, especially out west. You have to think about what what direction you're going. And I wonder if there's players that jump in value, not because you're their starter and they're your main option, but you wonder if you can steal in a playoff series, little 3-minute stretches, 4-minute stretches where Wemby is, has to guard the specific type of action or something. But as I went through it, there just aren't that many players. There's not very many that fit that mold. And so it's kind of interesting. And then you think long term, Wemby dominates for the next decade. He's on the ascension. You might see teams trying to build this. You see guys that have a little bit of the skill set, and they say, we're going to take this guy and we're going to try to make him really learn threes and drives. We'll see what happens. Before we move on to this, looking back at the other series, just going forward, what do you see as being key strategical things for the Spurs to do in Game 3?
Okay, so a couple things. First of all, defensively, they've got to continue to kind of over-index towards a traditional look rather than the overly aggressive look. I was a little concerned about this going into Game 2 after some of the quotes I heard from the Spurs guards that were anybody but Jalen. I'm like, anybody but Jalen? He was 10 for 31 in Game 1, or 12 for 31 or whatever. What do you mean anyone but Jalen? He had more shots than points. You're overreacting there. I didn't understand that thought process at all. And that, now to be clear, some of Brunson's efficiency issues have come from the kitchen sink being thrown at him. And if you defend him traditionally, he will probably score a little bit more and a little bit more efficiently. But right now the Knicks are getting assists on 65% of their field goals. That is way too much. That, like you said earlier in the show, the ball's popping too much. It's flowing too much. Things are too easy for them. And there's a certain amount of I want to see them stick with a traditional, yes, we'll dig down. Yes, we'll offer late help if someone's compromised, but let's not be throwing the kitchen sink at the 6-foot-tall dude trying to score over a bunch of apex perimeter defenders. Let's let him continue to do that. 2, getting out in transition as much as possible because you're drawing dead in the half court. Using your defense to play in the open floor, trusting that early shot more. You mentioned this earlier, whether it's that first bucket in transition or in that first or second attack off of the transition advantage. If you get a clean look, just take it, because you have some advantages on the offensive glass on long rebounds because you got some of those athletic guards out there. Get yourself shots earlier in the clock. In the half court, instead of running ISOs with Wemby, if you're going to run him one-on-one, get him situated in better position. So whether it's through cross screens or running pick and rolls, and then keeping the ball moving in pick and roll long enough for Wemby to get a steal, and then throwing the inside pass for him to go to work. And then lastly, they got to make a more intentional effort to hunt Brunson. Now, Brunson's hiding on Champagny a lot, and Champagny is having a hard time beating Brunson off of those ghost screens. He had a really bad one in Game 1 where he drove right into Cat and just got swatted into next Tuesday. I would be at least considering going with a 4-guard lineup if I'm Mitch Johnson, to essentially put Jalen Brunson in a situation where who am I guarding? Wait, I'm guarding Devin Vassell. That's their worst offensive player on the floor. Okay. Now I clear the side and I'm running pick and roll with Wemby. Now I've got Brunson and Cat defending the action. And I have a pretty good chance to get some sort of good shot for either one of those two guys or the rotation situation that comes out of it. So I want to see him kind of index towards his offensive ball handling to try to force Brunson to guard more.
I do think that there is a big, and it's funny because Brunson has not been the most valuable Knicks player so far, but I do think he is still in a lot of ways the head of the snake, especially late. And you want to take out his legs. That's been one of the themes of this entire playoffs is, can you wear down what the other team needs to do so that in the fourth quarter they're diminished. And I think you're right that Brunson has had a relatively easy job defensively because of these shallow closeouts and because how they're using him. It's like he's never running all the way out. He's not being attacked a lot. And I think because of that, then a guy like Dylan Harper becomes really important because I think him and Castle, but I think probably Dylan Harper especially are the best options if you said we're just trying to make Brunson's life hell. I agree. Dylan Harper is the guy that can be like, all right, that's a tough cover because he's physical. He doesn't let you off the hook if you're just trying to play like soft or light defense, contain. He gets into you, and then he does have the speed too to make you like constantly on your heels. I don't know if he's ready for it, to be honest with you, and I love Dylan Harper. I think that he is very good. But if you're saying that this whole series comes down to can you do that and put pressure on Brunson, I do worry that he'll be a little too mistake prone if you really accentuate his usage up sky high.
No, I agree. I think he is the key to the series because he's the one guy in the matchup that actually isn't a favorable matchup for the Knicks. Like, if you dig into the series physically, the advantages for the Knicks are Cat for all the reasons we discussed earlier. And then just how much bigger and more physical and longer in terms of like literal like arm length the Knicks perimeter players are. Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart. They're just like it's a bigger group. I even include Landry Shamet in this. It's just a bigger, longer group than the OKC perimeter defenders. And it's causing a bully ball style dribble drive attack from the Spurs to struggle. Those are the two main physical areas where the Knicks have advantage. Brunson is very much a guy that actually plays into the Spurs' strengths. He's a small guard who likes to take these tough ISO shots, and the Spurs don't have bad defenders on the floor. So there's no real guy for him to look to attack. So by on both ends of the floor weaponizing that, by on one end of the floor attacking him, attacking his legs, wearing him down, and then on the other end of the floor baiting him into low percentage shots that he'll struggle to be efficient over a large sample, that is your best way to tilt this series towards things that are actually an advantage for the Spurs versus like I was watching that game last night and I'm like, why is Cat entirely uninvolved with the offense down the stretch? Like he was completely uninvolved. He was just standing in the dunker spot. And by the way, he's so damn good. He still was making plays on the offensive glass to keep things alive for them. But like, Cat to me, if once they start running through Cat, that's where things start to tilt back towards like the play that I have burned in my head. There was a first half play where Cat is triple threat on Wemby up top key, like 25 feet from the basket. And Wemby kind of adjusted his pickup point so he wasn't giving up those blow-bys, like he was giving him a little bit more space. But on that play, they run a little off-ball action. Mikal Bridges breaks free under the basket. Cat hits him, and he gets a wide-open layup. And it's like that's the kind of stuff the Thunder were just never getting because they literally couldn't pull Wemby away from the rim unless they were in transition. And so, like, when that is the advantage style for the Knicks that the Spurs really can't match up with because it's like you take Wemby off of Cat, then Cat just bullies any one of their smaller guards. You put Wemby on Cat, it inverts their spacing and pulls them away from the rim and creates all sorts of problems on the back line. So, like, to me, trying to force the Knicks or bait the Knicks into playing Brunson ball while also wearing him down on the other end is their best pathway to bring themselves back into the series.
And by the way, luring them into playing Brunson ball with fewer traps might also play into this. That's also fatiguing because you're asking him to create over and over and over again. I do think that's a key to it. As much as I think Karl-Anthony Towns has kind of been the power punch of the Knicks, Brunson's still the one that seems like you can attack him, and not because he's going to fail, just because you can wear him down and you can change the sort of the texture of the game. I do want to anything else. Oh, the last thing I'll say about this is, I cannot wait to see the Garden for Game 3.
Oh my
it's
God.
just, and if they win, then for Game 4. But it's just that fan base is different. They've taken over every arena, which I hate. I'm not a fan. I've talked about this on the show. I just feel like the arena is a sacred place, and I hate that we live in a era where there's so many transplants and people can go everywhere. So I hate it. But nonetheless, great fan base, enormous. The Spurs having to go into that down 0-2. It's not just on the road, and we have to go, okay, hostile environment. You're going into an all-time moment in sports history. That's what you're walking into. I just think that crowd for Game 3 is going to be something we talk about for years to come. I really do, and that elevates the challenge that the Spurs have.
Yeah, I agree. I do think, though, that, like, I don't want to sit here and say like it's going to be easy because it won't. And there's certainly a version of Game 3 where the Knicks just beat the heck out of them and the crowd is insane. That like ultra keyed up crowd can also backfire a little bit by making your own guys a little tight. Yeah. And I do think that if the Spurs can kind of have a good first quarter and kind of put a little bit of pressure on the Knicks and cause the crowd to be a little like some groans and some frustrations, I think they can turn that dynamic against them. That said, I agree with you as a basketball fan. I'm very, very excited to see MSG. Just frankly, it's just a lot of history, and it's an arena where like that's almost become, in previous years before this recent Knicks run where the Knicks have been good, it used to be the place where you'd get this kind of cool vibe even though the team wasn't any good. And that was just how special that arena was and how special those fans were. And now seeing like literally one of the because I was making this comparison on my show last night. The Knicks actually kind of remind me a little bit of the Pacers. And what I mean by that is like there's some continuity. Like it's like, oh, this group of guys has kind of been together a little while now and they've been in some battles. Like obviously Kat and Mikhail only 2 years, but OG and Jalen and Josh have been together quite a while. They've been in some battles together. And then they kind of just capture lightning in a bottle, and all of a sudden they're playing this like magical brand of basketball. And so it does feel like kind of like destiny. And it would be a big bummer for those MSG fans if they didn't get a big win in front of their home crowd. But I think that the one last thing on the Spurs, to take this to the Spurs, this is not the Cavs. This is not like, oh, this series is over. I'm not going to try to win this one just so I have to deal with another shoot around and another practice and go play again in 2 days. Like these are Gen Z kids. They don't drink. None of them are thinking. None of them are thinking about Cabo and pina coladas.
Maybe
like half of these dudes, I wouldn't be surprised if these dudes are playing basketball the day after they get eliminated. These Spurs are not going to go down until they are literally dead. So like, I think that obviously the Knicks are set up for a sweep and the sweep is certainly on the table, but like, I think this is going to be a very difficult basketball team to sweep.
Yeah, I think you're right about it, but at the same time, man, I just think it's going to be an all-timer at the Garden for this game. I mean, I cannot wait to see what it looks like. Let's take one last break. We're going to talk about the key player going into the next round, and then I do want to wrap up by asking, is this a paper, rock, scissors league to this degree? It always has been, but to this degree, and can we recontextualize any of the teams that lost that maybe just ran into the bad matchup? We'll do that on the other side. Electric time in basketball on Kalshi. You can trade every single playoff game, every series, the conference finals, and championship. Right now, up 2-0. The Knicks are trading at 78% chance to win. To JT's point earlier, that's not that high. To me, it feels like it should be 95%. 78% pretty high, but not that crazy. Of course, San Antonio, that means 22%. What's great about Kalshi is you're trading against pairs in a live market, meaning there's no house, and as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code ALLNBA to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus. Only restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. Also want to tell you guys about Underdog. The NBA playoffs, the finals, really are here and might only be here for like two more games. We might be done by next week, which is crazy, but Underdog is the best place to get in on the action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, steals, and more. Get your picks right. You could win up to 5,000 times your cash. If I were to try to make an estimate coming up for this next one, build a roster, I would say Jalen Brunson. I actually think Jalen Brunson points higher. You're going back to the Garden. I just think special things happen in special moments. That's probably who I'd go with. Download the app today and use promo code ALLNBA to secure $50 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code ALLNBA. Underdog. Make picks. Win money. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-MY-RESET or 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. All right, back here, final segment of the All-NBA Show, weekend edition. Me and Jason Timpf. Let's go to our segment we added here late, which is our Kalshi Market Watch. And whose a position here are you buying? So who do you think is going to have a standout game in Game 3? I just said Jalen Brunson because I think that, again, I just believe in this idea of like it's a big moment, the emotion. I think he's a guy that rides that emotion in the best possible ways. So I think that Jalen Brunson will have his game in Game 3.
This is one of those things, too, where the coverage change will dictate that to a certain extent, too. Like, there's a version of it where Brunson has a rough shooting night, obviously, but there's a version of it where he is the one that beats that coverage, right? And beating that coverage in this case would involve Brunson just, it's funny. He's gotten his shots up anyway because I feel like he's just been – I feel like Brunson's kind of having a bad series, frankly. I think he's just been forcing the issue and taking a lot of pretty mediocre shots as he's kind of hunted his numbers, and the coverage hasn't really called for it. And the coverage will in Game 3, and his shot quality will improve, and I think he's got a great shot there.
You just said it will. How certain are you of that the Spurs are going to change just because you saw it late in this last game?
I am relatively certain. I'm relatively certain.
Okay.
I think we're going to see now. There's a version of this too. We saw a little bit of it at the tail end of the game where Mike Brown started playing more through like Mikal Bridges at the top of the key. But what was so funny is the ball ended up inevitably making its way back to Brunson anyway. I think that there's a version of it where Mike Brown counters and they just don't run a lot of Brunson ball as a result. But I think that especially under the moment, and like I'm sure Brunson would like to have a Finals MVP, and he technically is still the favorite for Finals MVP.
Really?
I think that you could bait him into taking a lot of those types of shots, and we would all be foolish to pretend like Brunson can't make them. But the other guy that I'd consider is just Wemby, because like I think like I thought I was about as down on Wemby in this series as you could possibly be after the first half of Game 2. I was like, man, like Cat has rough. He's like throwing the ball away. He's not even really looking to shoot. He had 22 points, 4 rebounds, 2 blocks, and a steal in just the second half of that game. Like Wemby still is one of the most, like you mentioned earlier, and it was so funny. You were talking about how like kind of fundamentally flawed he is. And you're so right about that. Like Wemby is still incredibly raw. And yet he is just so incredibly gifted that in his raw, flawed, mistake-making baby deer form, he can still just completely dominate for halves and quarters and games. And so I still think Wemby's going to have an answer for us in Game 3.
Yeah. You're right that he's completely effective. It's funny because I don't know if you did this, but back when I was younger and still playing the game, I would watch players that, like Kobe was my favorite one, but he'd do something and I would just watch it over and over and over again to learn the footwork and then go do it. So I'm always keyed into people's footwork because I just find it fascinating. And Wemby's is like, there isn't a footwork to it. It's almost not, it's not like, oh, he's doing it a robust footwork. It's that he's not thinking about what his footwork is as he's getting to make moves. But yes, he's so long and so talented that he can kind of like make it work anyway. All right, let's go to this last topic here, which is I really do think this is a paper, rock, scissors league. I think the Spurs have looked unbelievable for 3 rounds. You just watch them and you're just in awe of how good they are. I don't think they look good in the finals. And they're the same team. I don't think anything different has happened. It's just this matchup is exploiting a weakness that wasn't being revealed in previous rounds. And so are there any other teams now that you sit back and watch the degree to which this league feels like a paper, rock, scissors league, and you say, you know what? They're probably not as bad as they feel right now because they just got exploited by the team that was designed to exploit them.
Absolutely. The 3 teams that come to mind for me are Boston, Denver, and the Lakers. Where
they're all on my list. Yep.
Like just having like Boston runs into Joel Embiid and Joel Embiid kind of as a drop coverage big, kind of breaking their offense, and then just nobody in the Celtics center rotation could guard him, gets him eliminated. Like I think Boston. Now Boston with a broken down Jason Tatum probably loses to the Knicks anyway, but they, there's a version of that Celtics team that makes some small tweaks and they're right back in the mix next year. I look at like just how well coached the Lakers were, how LeBron is still such a gifted playoff player, just the overall ability for like a smart basketball team to kind of game the system in the postseason. Now plug in the Luka Doncic from March. could they go and win a bunch of playoff series? I absolutely think they could. Denver, healthy Peyton Watson, healthy Aaron Gordon. Health is a big part of this too.
Totally.
Like at the end of the day, like part of what made that Thunder team vulnerable is J-Dub and AJ Mitchell were hurt. So like that's worth mentioning here too.
Yeah.
But like it's a combination of like the matchup piece, like you got to be able to beat 4 different teams, and then the health piece. You got to be operating at your best when it matters. But like, one last thing I'll say about it, I do think there's a certain amount of like NBA defenses are so advanced now that like all of the superstars have struggled at various points.
Yeah.
And we might be in an era where like the days of the superstar just dog walking everybody on his way to the finals are going to be harder and harder to come by.
And you might get, lucky in that you get to go through a route where that doesn't happen. And even for a superstar, you might get a route where it's like, this team can't guard me, so I get to do the thing I like to do over and over again. But I do think that it's increasingly becoming a league where you can't prepare for all teams. You have to have your identity, and you have to hope that your weaknesses aren't so weak that one team can exploit them. I do think all 3 of those teams that you mentioned, though, have a case for this. The Lakers, I do think the Thunder are just a bad matchup in a way that I don't think they can adjust to. They might just be a bad matchup. You look at the Thunder even against the Spurs, and now this becomes the Chet question. He's so good for them. He does so many things, but is he really bad in this matchup? And how much do you zig on that? How much do you say, well, we have to prepare for Wemby, and then you get knocked out by a different team next year because you didn't have Chet? And I think this is the real problem that teams in the West are facing, and probably teams all around. The East, if they just get a little bit more talent, I think we'll have more teams that fit this idea of, hey, we have to avoid somebody. The West has, I think, more teams that are capable of being just a team's kryptonite. And I do think with Denver, obviously they're the team I cover the most, but it feels to me like the era is over and they have to blow everything up. And I still think that Denver was not going to win it this year, even if they got by that first round. I think they were probably weak enough. But the degree to which they need to change their identity and adjust everything is a huge question, because Minnesota does have the exact pieces to give them a hard time. And you watch them just look horrible, falling to a shorthand Wolves. And I just wish I could see them against the Thunder and against the Spurs and any of these other teams. And so you can separate what really is a disaster and needs rethought and what is just the Wolves are a bad matchup and you have to go, you have to account for that. I think that's going to be one of the toughest questions for NBA teams in general in the Western Conference for the next handful of years. I don't think you can build for every team. So which teams should you build for, and what part of your identity should you lean into?
And whether or not you win the title might just be like, what's the draw?
Every time.
Because like, again, I've been talking about if the Knicks can just draw the Spurs in the finals. I've been talking about that since February. Like if the Knicks can just draw the Spurs in the finals, they're gonna have a great chance to win the championship. It's like and it might be that simple for Denver. It's like if Denver can just avoid Minnesota somewhere.
Yeah, I will say that I think the Knicks are also one of Denver's tough matchups. I think most teams will have like 2 or 3 teams that are a bad matchup. Maybe you beat them, maybe you don't. I think the best teams, though, what we're realizing is even the best teams have at least one team out there that has something that could really give you trouble. It's fascinating. I don't know if the league, it's always been this way to some degree, but I feel like it's even more pronounced now.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I think part of it is that like kind of, we call it parity, but it's really just like a flattening of the top of the league. It's just all of these teams are really, really good. Yeah. So, obviously I think there are certain teams, like I do think if OKC's 100% healthy, like if J-Dub is not repeatedly injuring his hamstring, but has like 100% rhythm and health, I think that Thunder team is pretty difficult to beat. But even them, they'll have a Spurs problem. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like each team will have some teams will have more teams that match up poorly against than others. And the team at the top will just have like maybe 1 or 2. But that flattening at the top of the league where everybody's just really, really good, I think that's part of why we're never going to see a team rip off 3 titles in a row.
Yep. This actually might be the biggest reason that we're not seeing these dynasties. It's almost impossible to expect your team to avoid them 2 years in a row, let alone 3 or 4. You're just at some point going to run into your kryptonite. I see one super chat here, and I didn't even realize it, Atticus, till just now. But you can bring it up here because it's what we just talked about. Our homie Carrot Hammer is the nature of NBA becoming rock, paper, scissors, where matchups can mean more than talent. We just talked about that. What teams, though, would be a matchup nightmare for New York? Detroit this year was. I mean,
Indiana
Detroit,
Pacers.
the Pacers last year. You're right. So
I think the Knicks are vulnerable to speed and shooting, but it's just
Oklahoma City maybe too. Then
yeah, I think Oklahoma City would be like I personally think that a healthy like OKC with one of their two guards, AJ Mitchell or J-Dub, I think they would have beat the Knicks.
Yeah,
but I know like. It's so hard to say because like you talk about this and it sounds like you're trying to undercut a team, and I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to undercut the Knicks, but they played a 7 seed, a 6 seed, and a 4 seed, all three of which we thought were pretty fraudulent to various degrees. And then you have a Spurs team that we all knew they matched up really well with from the beginning. Now they've dominated those teams.
Historically,
and I think that's where you need to give them a ton of credit. Like, I'm not trying to take away credit from them individually, but like the bottom line is like I don't think they're actually a perfect example of what we're talking about, where they got a draw where they didn't run into a team that attacked their specific weaknesses. And that's where, like, if you're going to repeat, like, if you ask me, what do I think the Knicks would repeat next year? The chances are, whether it's Indiana, whether it ends up being a healthy, retooled Boston team, whatever it might be, there will be a team that stresses their weaknesses in a way that these four teams did not.
Yeah. All right, cue that outro music, Atticus. Great show today, JT. Always fun catching up with you, and I appreciate you hopping on the weekend show. You guys, like I said, can't say enough. Hoops Tonight, really doing great work right after games. It's a great post-game show for you to kind of keep the feeling going. Doing a great job over there, so make sure you're subscribed to his channel as well. Thanks for hanging out with us on this Saturday. Everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm done. I'm no basketball for like the next 48 hours. Can't wait for it. We'll see you guys on Monday.
We all silly like the mayor.